I'll be discussing Anthony Accetturo and going into some of his life, as well as a statement he made regarding the Lucchese leadership, but of greater significance, how the outcome of events would have played out much differently. So let's get into it. While growing up in both Orange and Newark, New Jersey, Anthony Accetturo had few money-making opportunities available to him. Consequently, he dropped out of school with only a sixth grade education. And by the age of 16, he moved to Newark, where he became involved with local street gangs. And it was during this time that he acquired the nickname Tumac, which came from a caveman featured in the movie 1 Million BC. By age 17, he caught the attention of Anthony Delasco, a captain in the Lucchese's Jersey faction, and Joseph Abate, a member of Delasco's crew, and someone who would become Delasco's successor. An FBI report dated November 30th, 1960, has an informant stating that Delasco was operating exclusively throughout Essex County, New Jersey, and was heavily involved in the numbers racket. In fact, Delasco was making so much money that he was paying the second precinct in Newark $4,000 a week to protect his gambling operations. Delasco would lead that crew throughout the 50s and 60s, but there came a point in time that Abate took the crew over. At the time, the Lucchese boss was Carmine Tremonte, who was essentially warming the seat for Anthony Corallo, who was serving 3 years for bribery. Accetturo was very friendly with both Tremonte and Corallo, but considered extremely close to Corallo. And despite only being an associate, they treated Accetturo with the highest regard. For instance, when Abate was considered inactive and retired, it was Accetturo who was picked to head the Jersey crew. The books were closed at the time, so he was basically an unofficial member. In and around 1971, Accetturo left the New Jersey area to avoid a subpoena and settled in Hollywood, Florida. He put his close associates, Michael and Martin Tessetta, to run the day-to-day operations of the Jersey crew. By 1973, Tremonte received a 15-year sentence, and Corallo, now out of prison, became the family's official boss. When the books reopened in 1976, Accetturo and the Tessettas were all inducted into the family, a ceremony that the retired Abate also attended. Accetturo was immediately fast-tracked to a position and became the official captain of the Jersey crew. Accetturo would describe his induction as, "The greatest honor ever bestowed on me was the day I was being formally initiated into the Lucchese family." He and his crew were involved in gambling, loan sharking, labor racketeering, extortion, marijuana smuggling, pornographic film distribution, bingo parlors on Indian reservations, counterfeit credit cards, as well as infiltrating legitimate businesses, such as a construction equipment leasing firm and the boardwalk video and gaming industry, all of which over time made Accetturo a personal fortune. Similar to the Gambino Sicilian faction, Accettoro's Jersey crew became a family of their own. Nonetheless, one that still reported and answered to the Lucchese's leadership. Fast forward to the summer of 1984, June 12, 1984 in particular, Vincent Crapparata was killed with golf clubs after parking his car in a garage at his car lot in Toms River, New Jersey. The reason for his death was over a video machine business, SMS Manufacturing Inc., owned by Crapparata's nephews. Apparently, Crapparata was interfering with the business making tribute to the Jersey crew. Allegedly, after Crapparata was killed, the Jersey crew members, both Tessettas and Tommy Ricciardi, began taking $1,000 a week from the business. As mentioned, Accetturo spent most of his time in Florida and made Michael Tessetta his acting captain. The following year, 1985, the government, in two separate indictments, charged 11 people in what would become known as the Commission Case. Among the indicted were Anthony Corallo, his underboss, Salvatore Santoro, and consigliere, Christy Tick Funeri. Prior to their ultimate conviction, and seeing the handwriting on the wall, Corallo, with Funeri's input, chose 3 members to fill the void in the family's leadership. As we know, Corallo opted for Buddy Luongo to be his successor, and Funeri picked members of his crew, Vic Amuso and Gaspipe Casso, who viewed Luongo as an obstacle and ultimately took him out of the equation during a meeting at the 19th hole in Brooklyn. The Lucchese leadership under Corallo and his administration was a thriving one. Corallo was a wealthy and wise boss and never displayed traits of greed. So despite the money Accetturo and his crew were pulling in, Corallo only accepted somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 at Christmas time. When Vic and Gas took over, they began an internal investigation and discovered just how well the Jersey crew was doing. According to Accetturo, the only thing Vic and Gas understood was violence and grab the money. So it came as no surprise that this became an issue. Initially, the Jersey crew's leadership was called to Brooklyn, but due to Vic and Gas's reputation, they became leery of meeting with the new bosses. In fact, whenever meetings were set up, the Jersey crew would make continuous excuses. And there came a point when Vic and Gas, fed up, wanted to kill the entire Jersey crew, a fact that reached the ears of the guys in Jersey. According to Joe Perna, whose father Ralphie and brother Michael were part of the crew, during this time, members of the crew were meeting and were literally crying because they felt their days were numbered. Supposedly, there was a meeting of reconciliation, or at least on the surface, that was to take place in a Brooklyn basement. But the few members of the Jersey crew that actually showed up decided against entering the basement and left, a decision that more than likely saved their lives. At that point, the majority of the Jersey crew went into hiding. But over time, most of them eventually gravitated their way back into the family. There would come a time when the Tsettes would turn on Accetturo. Vic and Gas, in typical Lucchese fashion, labeled him a rat and not only wanted to kill him, his son, but word reached Accetturo that there was reference made of killing his wife as well. And as I've mentioned in a previous video, during this same time, Accetturo was locked up in New Jersey for refusing to testify before a New Jersey investigation commission. By 1992, Accetturo, the Tsettes, Ricciotti, and Michael Perna were indicted for racketeering, which included the murder of Craparata. And following their conviction, on August 13, 1993, both Accetturo and Ricciotti began cooperating. Please remember to like this video if you haven't already. And for anyone who wants to show their appreciation or help keep this podcast going, you can do so by the Super Thanks icon down below or the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned a statement made by Anthony Accetturo, and this took place during a 1994 interview, where he said the following, that the new generation that's running things threw all the old rules out the window. The key word is greed. All they care about is money. I personally found the same to be true 2 decades later. Accetturo also said that he would have never cooperated or even considered it had Tony Ducks Corallo still been running the family. And in those days, the mafia was run by men who never put money above honor. Understandably, there'll be people who don't believe anything Accetturo said and feel that he was just making excuses, and that's fine. I look at what took place, the facts, and how his statements relate to those realities and come up with either truthfulness or not. For around 20 years, prior to Vic and Gas taking over the family, Accetturo ran the Jersey crew under Corallo's rule. The money he kicked up was never put to question, nor was he ever labeled a rat, or had his life or the lives of his family threatened. Considering those realities, I personally believe if Corallo never went to prison, Anthony Accetturo never speaks with the government.